welcome to another video. Now this is going to be all of my pickups for the first half of June. And there's quite a bit to get through. More manga than I was expecting, but that was because a somewhat larger order from probably 6 weeks ago finally arrived, and so I think that boosted the number quite a bit. And yeah, so I hope you guys enjoy. I'll just get straight into it, and first off is an anime, and this is one that was in that Amazon sale a couple weeks ago. It took a little bit longer to fulfill this order and the next thing I'm going to show off, but this was Barakamon on Blu-ray and DVD. This is a show that I've seen a little bit of. I haven't seen all of it just because there wasn't really any legal streaming where I was, and so I never really had the opportunity to watch it. But what I did see, I did really enjoy it. This is a very good sort of, people enjoy it a lot, and I know that I enjoyed what I saw of it. I hear that the manga is a little bit more biting when it's like comparing the countryside and then the city sort of lifestyles. I think they sort of toned it down a little bit for the anime, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily a detriment to it. As most of you are probably aware, this was a standard release only for this show. This was the first wave of shows, I think, that really started putting out just standard stuff for their releases. If Funimation didn't think that it deserved like a limited edition set, and I know quite a few people were quite upset that this wasn't one chosen for that, but it is, I know it's very well regarded, but it is still somewhat of a niche, just overall sort of series. It doesn't appeal to everyone, and it is sort of a slower, comedic slice of life show, a bit of a fish out of water thing, so I can understand why they did it, although I don't necessarily agree with it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to finishing up this show, and yeah, I'm sure I will enjoy it. Next is the last of that Amazon sale anime that I got. It's another standard release, and that is Yurikuma Arashi. Again, one that only got a standard release like this. So I am a huge fan of this director. If you're not familiar with his other work, like Revolutionary Girl Utena or Moaru Penguin Drum, then I encourage you to watch it, because he has very strong themes that he sort of run through all of his shows that he's directed, including the bits of Sailor Moon that he did. But anyway, so this story follows three girls from space, I think. But it is a huge allegory on lesbianism in the media and how women are portrayed and that sort of thing. None of his shows are ever just surface value or surface level entertainment. There is always something a little bit more to them, so it's not particularly difficult to figure out, but it does, if you didn't realize that allegory, which I don't know how you could miss it, honestly, then maybe knowing that perspective will give you a bit more information and just make you understand it a little bit more. This is one, again, that I haven't finished. I watched a couple episodes when it was first airing. This one was legally streamed, I believe, but I was just really busy at the time. It was one I adored, but just sort of slipped on the backlog a bit. which usually never really happens for shows that I really, really enjoy, like this one. But yeah, by the time this came out for this new, this recent sale, I was like, well, this gives me the perfect opportunity to actually finish it up, and that I will, because I'd like to see how it ends. I'm probably halfway through this one, so yes, I'm just really looking forward to it, and I'm glad that I got both this and Barakamon for such good prices, because I think these Funimation standard releases really are ones that I wait on quite a bit. I prefer to get just like later down the track, because there's no like incentive for me to buy them quickly. There's no like limited box or anything like that, which isn't a bad thing. I think it's definitely good for me. I can save a bit of money. And if you picked this show up during that sale, then I hope you enjoy it, because it is very, very good. Starting with the manga, we have the newest volume of a series I absolutely adore, and this volume was really, really good. I've had it for a week and a half, but I only sat down and read it last night, and that is Devil's Line Volume 7 by Ryo Hanada. Man, this is such a good series. I know I always encourage people to read it whenever I get a new volume, but it's definitely sort of gotten even deeper into the themes and the conspiracy of the sort of story it's telling, and how the characters operate. There's a lot of character revelations this episode. There's every volume you do learn or see quite shocking stuff, in just like, oh my gosh, they actually explain that question. And even though it does bring up more questions, unlike some series, it doesn't drag out the mystery for too long so that it gets boring and repetitive. This series is always changing. It has this particular volume has a very, very strong ending and cliffhanger, and I can never, I say this every volume, I cannot wait for more, because it's just so good. So good. Hanada, she's writing this world that is really very overall realized, which is that's fairly standard for this sort of monsters within human society setting, but just how this group interacts with the police, and even people who are sympathetic towards this group of people, how it doesn't necessarily mean they're above protecting themselves. It's really very interesting, very, very, very good, and I encourage you to read it. I think Vertical does certainly have some of the most intriguing licenses currently. They always have such variety, and you can definitely tell that they have a team that really focuses on stuff that's maybe a little more niche, but still deserving of being seen. And this is a really good one. And I mean, it's not super long. It's not finished, but Volume 9 just came out in Japan. So I hope we see the rest soon, and I hope Hanada keeps writing such a marvelous story. Next is another Vertical release, and this is the final volume of Riichi Ueshiba's Mysterious Girlfriend X, another series that I really do encourage you to read. It's so good. It's very it has such understated intentions, but it's very realistic despite the sort of out there premise. I've said that before, don't let the premise put you off of this series, because it's emotionally genuine in a way that a lot of high school romance series aren't. It handles sort of that first relationship very, very well, with how teens interact with each other, how humans sort of should treat each other when they're in a relationship, and sort of the compromises and the care that you put into a relationship, which isn't always done incredibly well in manga, to say the least. But this is the final omnibus. It's volumes 11 and 12, and just wonderful, 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 wonderful. It's very funny, as always, but again, it really does bring to the core of the matter of how young people especially like relate to each other, and how that changes within a relationship. So yes, read this, it's marvelous, and give Vertical your money because they deserve it. Next is another recent release, Everyone's Getting Married Volume 5, the current josei series from Viz. And again, this is one that I am really, really happy that we're getting more of, and I'm glad that we're getting this sort of josei, because as much as I love the like extremely comedic or the extremely dramatic josei, when it comes to like the quote-unquote office lady romance sort of josei, it's quite hard to find one that actually discusses marriage in a mature way and like an actually realistic way, exploring all the avenues and angles and what makes marriage, like the meaning you should take out of marriage, rather than like expecting it to be a cure-all for your problems, which a lot of josei sort of implies. I've said this before, I repeat myself a lot with these series, but I'm just trying to like hammer the point home that it's consistent, it stays very, very at the forefront, and it's very relevant, and it is such a change from a lot of it's not a bodice ripper that some of these office lady series are. It explores a proper adult, mature relationship, which includes all the troubles that come with real relationships, but does emphasize, the need for communication, the need for compromise, and how we as individuals sort of act within relationships, and how that works or doesn't work, and why like commitment, like communication is a huge part of relationships before you fully get committed, which marriage should be like a very important, something you take a lot of time to think about and before you truly commit to it. But yes, wonderful, wonderful series. I don't know how this is running. I don't know how many volumes are out in Japan. But it's nice. It's really nice, and I'm looking forward to more of Everyone's Getting Married. It's quite easy to read as well. It's not like, I don't know, sometimes you get a little bit bogged down with these sorts of stories, but it's really hasn't gotten too like unrealistically dramatic or anything. It does what it does very, very well. Next we have the new volume of Yona of the Dawn, volume 6. Oh, this is such a beautiful cover. I absolutely love it. The actual content in this volume is sort of where, in the anime, I think the series got bogged down a little bit. It just ran too long, focusing on the Green Dragon and the pirates and stuff. And what the Green Dragon's an interesting character, but I think the series did spend a little too much time on him, compared to some of the other characters. I don't know. But this series is always always good, consistently good, very fun. Everybody's very likable, and it's not um, these sort of higher fantasy, like female warrior led sorts of series, or young princess uh, fighting series aren't really around anymore. They were very, very prevalent in the 90s. But nowadays, not so much. And I'm glad that we've gotten a new one that is seemingly doing very well. Um, it's very, very, very well. Like, it's quite good at establishing itself and its characters, and they're all very likable. It's not necessarily doing anything super new, but it does it in a very engaging way, and I can appreciate that. That's all. I do like these sorts of shoujo series. It seemed they were on a downward sort of trend, but I'm glad that series like this, and even things like Snow White with the Red Hair, have gotten more popularity to the genre recently, because this higher fantasy shoujo stuff is always very good. It's nice. It's a nice change of pace from a lot of the just bog standard romance that we see within the English shoujo market. So yeah, if you want a bit of political scheming and fighting and somewhat magic, that sort of thing, and a great cast of kooky characters, this is one to check out. I know it's like 23 or 24 volumes long in Japan already, so we're quite far behind, but hopefully that means we'll see these releases coming out a little bit quicker. So yeah. Next is volume 12 of Haikyuu. Again, like, I don't know, there's nothing new for me to say about this series. It's just so fun. It's a consistently fun and just really entertaining sports series that just grabs you. I enjoy sports series as a whole, but Haikyuu really, really does excel at making very engaging and empathetic characters. So even if you're reading or watching the opposite team, like, for the most part, I know all of the characters' names, including like opponent schools and rivals and that sort of thing, which for some other sports series I don't. Like, I might recognize them, but I have zero clue as to what their name is. They're not as memorable as the characters in this series, which is sort of sad, especially when you have sports series, a team sports series where you have a lot of characters. You want to try and make as many as you can memorable, and Furodate really does that aspect of a sports series very well. Yeah, it's just really fun. Like, I don't know what else to say. This particular volume, again, is just more season 2 stuff. We're only at volume 12, and there's probably currently like 24, 25 volumes out in Japan. So we're about halfway through what's currently being released. But the manga itself is never, like, it doesn't stretch the games out for super, super long. You don't feel like it goes on forever and ever and ever, and you just want the actual games to end. Which I think sometimes some other series do get sort of monotonous and repetitive. This series sort of avoids that, thankfully. And yeah, I don't know, guys. It's really good. If you haven't started reading it and you're interested, you should try it out. If it's not your thing, that's totally cool. But I think it's a good starter sports series. Like, it's very again, it's got a likable cast. It's very, very easy to get into. The anime is a lot of fun, and just overall, it is a sports series that even if you don't understand the sport and you don't really enjoy the volleyball, it's still something you can get excited for the characters about, and you do it changes how you perceive the sport, like a lot of these sports series do. Currently my favorite sports series coming out, aside from Chihayafuru, which I know some people don't classify as sports, but I do. Those two are definitely my favorite that are currently being released, and yeah, I'm glad that we're seeing more of these sort of larger popularity sports series coming out in English, because we all know that was sort of a dead zone for a long time. I'm glad that the market's changed enough that sports like this and Kuroko and Yomushi Pedal can find their place and be profitable for companies, because it's been a long time since we've had we're in a new golden age of sports series, really. So yeah. Next is another new volume, and that is volume 18 of Arashi Toka's Noragami. And oh my goodness, it's so worth the wait. It is always sad when you have to wait for a series, especially considering Noragami was something we were getting monthly. This last wait has been so long, and it's only been exacerbated by the recent hiatus, which I never complain about that. That's not my business. I always hope that mangaka put their health first and their work second. But yeah, actually having this volume after so many months, it's really great to jump back into Noragami. I have no words for this series. It's hard to describe why I like it. It's just very competent at what it does, and it really it has enough twists to keep you on your toes. You never sort of get bored with sameness. So yeah, I'm looking forward to where it goes, even though we're probably not getting volume 19 for several more months, which is sad, but unfortunately that's sort of what happens when you catch up with a monthly series, and by that I mean where chapters come out every month or every couple months. So we're all just going to have to be patient. Beautiful cover as always with this one. Yeah. Check out Noragami. I'm sure your library has it. It's very funny, although I do think it takes a couple volumes to really establish itself. I didn't adore it from volume 1. It took me till a little bit later, but it's very, 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 very good. Next we have some older releases. These ones I got from Better World Books, which is a ex-library website where you can buy books that used to belong to libraries, and your money goes towards donating a new book for that library, or reading programs or that sort of thing. So the books I got were volume 7, volume 8, volume 9, and volume 10 of Ottoman, the sort of gender-defying shoujo romance. Somewhat this author has done other works that I think push the gender expectation things in a better way, but for just a silly high school romance comedy series, it still does handle itself very well. And I also got volume 18 just yesterday, in fact, but this was from a local seller who was just, I don't know, selling odd volumes, and this was the only one he had. I don't know why he had the last volume, but the cover's really beautiful. I really, really like the cover on this one. It's very soft and, I don't know, pretty. Very pretty. I was sort of surprised that it wasn't blue because so many of the previous volumes covers are blue. This was the first one that really wasn't blue, so I don't know. But this is a fun series. It's nothing groundbreaking, but like both main characters are very likable, and they don't like it's not too ridiculous with like, oh, he likes girly things, that makes him a girl and blah blah blah. It doesn't push that agenda, which sometimes these sorts of series do. It's just like, yeah, he's a guy, but he likes this stuff. He's ashamed about it, but that's like not because he's like has self-hatred for himself, but more so because of his mother's expectations on him, which is like quite a big part of sort of the larger things implied in this story. It's pretty interesting. Some things are handled better than others, but for a series of this age, it really does lend itself towards like being a little more acceptable than maybe now if it was coming out. But this author is very good with these sorts of topics, and I think she's only improved over time. But yeah, it has a very distinct Nozaki-kun sort of notes to it, mainly with the one friend being a shoujo mangaka, like secretly, nobody knows. So yeah, it's got a couple different elements to it. It's pretty consistently funny. It's not like laugh out loud funny, but it's humorous. It's, you know, very non-threatening. It's just fun and light and sweet and heartwarming. It's nice to see. Again, this is a good example of a romantic couple who are well suited and actually pay attention to their partner's needs and you know, I don't know. It's nice to see people who genuinely care about each other in relationships compared to some other things. So yeah, I'm glad that I got such a large chunk of what I need. I only need 11 to 17 now, so 7 books, but that's over. I have over half now, which is a good thing. And we have more books that I got from a somewhat local seller. They were shipped from a different state, but I did get them for a very good price, and they're basically like new. And that is some House of Five Leaves. So we have Volume 1, Volume 4, and Volume 6. There's 8 volumes in total for this series. This, I think, is what a lot of people recognize as Ono's work. It's probably her most popular just because of the... I mean, Ristorante Paradiso and this series both got anime adaptations, as well as her most recent series, Aka. But I think the age of those shows really brought people's attention to this series and the one-shot Ristorante Paradiso. I'm glad that I finally picked this up. This is one that I've read, I think, 6 or so volumes of, just through libraries. It's very, very, very good. It's about a group of individuals. It's set during like samurai era Japan, and the main character, he's come to Edo to become a bodyguard. He's sort of very meek. He's a samurai, but he doesn't have any sort of aggression. He's sort of afraid of conflict and fighting and that sort of thing. But he's very good with his sword. But he was dismissed from his lord's service that he was working under. So now he's become a wandering Ronin, basically, trying to get work as a bodyguard. He comes to Edo and falls into this group of people who they kidnap the young lords of wealthy households and hold them for ransom as a way to make money and basically give undeserving households their due. It's it's pretty interesting. There's a lot more to it than that, but if that gets you interested, I recommend you try the series out because it's very, very good. Ono has a great way of telling very understated human stories. There's so much going on in this series, but it's not bombastic. Even though it, handles kidnapping and ransom and all of that, that's a little bit secondary to what the actual message of the story is and how these people sort of fall into this line of work and why they're doing it, and all of them have different reasons why. It's very intriguing. It's it's probably the longest of her series. I'm fairly certain that Aka 13 is only 6 volumes. But I mean that's just a good thing. It allows every character their due. You really do get a feeling for all of these various individuals. And yeah, I'm glad that I finally got some of these volumes. I don't know why people have such random volumes in their collection, or I guess maybe they find them at book sales or whatever, but I was like, why do you have 1, 4, and 6? That's just that's pretty that's a pretty random assortment of volumes, but I'm not complaining. Anything I can get for such a good price, I'm happy to have, especially when it's something that I'm actually actively searching for. So yes, I'm slowly but surely finishing up my Ono collection. I still have the rest of this as well as one of her one-shot collections to get, and then all I need is her upcoming series being released by Yen Press, which I'm so glad was licensed, just by the way. But yeah. Finally, from the same seller that I got House of Five Leaves from, in fact, is the single volume Pink by Kyoko Okazaki. This is a josei story. It was written during sort of the economic bubble of the 80s in Japan, and sort of how young people and society fit into such a world and society of money and excess, and how sort of the boredom of that, you could almost take it in a Gatsby direction, with how excessive money makes you bored, and you sort of become just blasé about life. There's aspects of this in this series. It's only 1 volume long, but it's quite and it is very much a product of its time, of that economic bubble, before it popped, and then sort of the Japanese economy went downhill. But it's still relevant in how I think young people perceive the world and the money of their parents, and just this huge increase of wealth over such a short period of time, and how that really does change a society, and how we feel about ourselves, and how people interact with money and this sort of luxurious lifestyle. It's very good. Again, this is a good one-shot to read. It's not it's not a huge commitment. It's not super thick. I've wanted to get this again for a while, but sort of one-shot things have slipped down my radar just with so many ongoing series I've had currently. But I'm aiming to buy more of these one-shots just because it's something that I always appreciate a story that can tell itself in a single volume. It does take a certain type of skill to fully like tell a story in a short period. Plus you get a huge range of variety, and a lot of like quite hidden gems are just like single volume stuff. So yeah, that is my aim, to actually improve and get more of these sorts of things in my collection. I do have a fair few, but I'd like to get as many as possible of the stuff I've read, at least, because there's a lot of good stuff that I've wanted to own for a very long time, but just so many other series coming out, they just sort of get left behind. So I'm trying to shift that a little bit in the next coming months. I'll still have my, standard stuff that I'm getting every month, but I am going to be slowing down for some of my ongoing stuff, just things that I can wait. I don't need, brand new every single time it comes out. There may be series that are a bit more obvious to that as rather than some, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. So that's everything I got for the first half of June. Today's my last exam, so after this I will have a lot more free time. Hopefully I'll actually get some videos out that I've been promising. I hope to finish up my collection video very soon. Thank you for being patient on that. And yeah, there's quite a bit more here than I was expecting. I always seem to get more manga than I realize every single month or every, half month. But I mean, I'm not complaining about it. I'm just like, what I don't even remember, like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like I buy that much, but then when it's in front of you, it is always a lot. So yes. But I hope everyone enjoyed this. I'll see you in the next video, guys. Bye till then.